In this video, we're going to actually add locked exits to our games and implement keys that will actually unlock those exits. So here, if I'm in a room and I say go north, you'll see that it is currently locked. But if I take a key and then I use the key, you'll see that it unlocks the door to a shed. And so now if I go north, it'll actually let us go through. We're now in a shed. We've unlocked the door. So that's what we're going to do in this video. It's going to be amazing. Let's get started. So in our last video, we added a key that the player could pick up and take and drop, but we didn't actually do anything with it. We don't have locked exits yet. So that's what we're going to do finally in this video. So the first thing I want to do just to demonstrate to use for making locked exits first is add a new room to our game. And I know our room system here, our map has been pretty lame with just 2 rooms. And unfortunately, we're not going to flesh it out all the way right now, but we will add one more room. So I'm going to click on our room manager here. And then I'm going to hit the instance button and I'll find room. So we'll create a new room. And what I'm going to do is just make this a shed. And so as I'm calling this shed room, basically what I want to do is have our house that the player starts in, then they can go outside to the east, and then to the north is a shed. So I'm going to select and move our shed room to the north of outside here, and we'll start giving it a name. So a shed, and remember we're going to do all lowercase here because that's the convention we'll be doing. And this is just going to be a dusty old shed used for storage. Okay, so now we've got a shed room, which is awesome. So what we want to do is currently we have our key in the house. I want to move this to be outside so the player can find the key outside somewhere and then use that for the shed, just to kind of demonstrate the different controls we have. So if we come into our room manager here, you'll see we're doing a bunch of stuff with our house room here. Well, what I'm going to actually do is move line 9 down one and change this to be outside room. So it's going to be our outside room that has the key. And then I'm also going to connect an exit for our outside room. So outside room.connect exit. And this is going to be to the north because remember we placed our shed to the north of our outside room. And we're going to connect our shed room. Okay, so now we have our house outside and the shed, and it's all connected. And remember, I'm connecting rooms from the inside out, where the inside is where the player starts. So we start at the room the player starts with and then move outside. So house to outside to shed. That's the order I'm connecting just to make sure we're not overwriting exits. So if I run our game, just to make sure this works, we'll see that there's no items now in our house. So if I go east, we'll see there is a key. And look, we've got 2 exits now. We can go west to go back into the house or north to go into the shed. If I go north, we are in a shed. Amazing. It works. And this is a nice testament to how easy it is to add rooms to our game using the system we've created. So it is nice to see that. And it's nice to see that when we have multiple exits, things work as we would expect them to. So all in all, this is going really well. The only problem now, though, is that our shed is not locked off the start. We need to make it locked, so we need to have locked exits. And in order to do that, we're going to come into our room manager here, and we're going to modify our connect exit function or make a new function to create locked exits. So in order to add locked exits, what I'm going to do is come into our exit here, and you'll remember that we have a room 1 is locked and a room 2 is locked variable. I'm not totally sure if I gave an explanation for that in the last video, but basically the reason I wanted to do this is so eventually maybe in your game you want it where both sides of an exit could be locked. So for example, you could have a key that lets you go from a south room to a north room, but you would either need another key to go from the north to the south to go back again, or it just could be a one-way exit. So that's why we have both of these, so that you can only unlock one way, for example, and can't go back another way. But for our purposes, for this video where we just want simple locked rooms, all we're going to modify is this variable, the room 2 is locked. So what you need to do is just unlock room 2. We'll only lock the room that is being connected to. If you wanted to simplify this, you could get rid of both of these variables and just have a exit is locked variable. It's probably easier, but again, I just wanted to show this as an example in case you did want one-way exits or etc. You can modify this in your game as needed. Anyway, so we've got this room 2 is locked variable, and what we need to do now is come into our room and look at our connect exit function here. Now, we've got this one big function that is doing all the connecting of our exits, and I think what we want to do here, there's a couple ways. One is we could add a bunch of different parameters here, so start adding a is locked parameter, etc. And we could keep doing that every time we have a new situation for a door, like is one way, is locked, whatever. But that's going to get overwhelming pretty quickly if we just have all of these different parameters that we might not need at a given moment. So what I want to do is have a private underline connect exit function that we can then make a bunch of other public connect exits connect exit functions that have specialized features. So like connect exit locked, connect exit normal, etc. And they all call connect exit under the hood and pass in these parameters. But that way the player does not have to worry about, or the developer doesn't have to worry about passing in all these parameters in the correct order. And if that doesn't make sense, you'll see what I mean in just a minute here as we get started. So in order to do this, let's make a new function above connect exit. I'm going to say function connect exit locked. And this is going to take the same parameters that our connect exit does. So it's going to be direction, which will be a string, and room, which again, remember, we're not typing just to prevent, I think we're preventing circular dependencies with that. And we don't need any other parameters for this. And what I'm going to do is say connect exit, and I'm going to say direction, room, we're just passing through here. But what I'm going to do is turn connect exit into a private function. Now in Godot, at least in Godot 3, Godot 3.3 is what I'm using, but any Godot 3, until the new GD script updates in Godot 4, you can't actually make a function private. So the way you designate a function as being private is by adding a underscore before it. This kind of tells the engine, hey, this is private, outside things shouldn't call it. And you'll see that's convention used all over the engine. There's a bunch of built-in functions that have these underscores in front of them, basically saying, hey, don't call this somewhere else. But it's really just a courtesy. An outside script can call these functions, but you're asking the engine, or you're asking the developer basically not to do that. So again, this isn't truly a private method or a private function, but we're going to use it like that and respect, as developers, the underscore here as best as we can. So now connect exit is a private function. We're not going to call it anywhere else. And so this is going to need a bunch of parameters that can handle basically any kind of exit that we might need. So what I'm going to do is now pass in an is locked parameter. This is going to be a Boolean, and we're going to default it to false. So it will default to unlocked. And now what we can do here is, first we have to change our connect exit call in connect exit locked to have the underscore. And now what we can do is actually pass in an is locked parameter, which is going to be true. And remember, whenever we're calling connect exit locked, we obviously want to lock the exit, so we can always pass true in here. And now we also need another function, since this is connect exit is now a private function and we don't want to call it outside or anywhere else. We're going to need another function that tells it to create an exit that is unlocked. And this is going to be a public function. So we'll just say connect, whoops, wow, that was terrible. Connect exit unlocked. And this is going to take the exact same parameters. I could have just copied them, but direction and a room. And we're going to do, again, just pretty much the same thing. Connect exit here, direction, whoops, direction, room. And then remember, we have a default value here for false, so we don't actually need to pass in anything for is locked. But just for the sake of being explicit, I am going to pass in a false, since this function is called connect exit unlocked. So it's just making it clear if someone looked at this, hey, we are not locking this exit. So now we've got these two public functions that we can use to create exits that are locked or unlocked respectively, and we don't need to call this connect exit one anymore. Now, we haven't actually changed the code of our underlying connect exit function to actually handle locking doors or not. So that's what we can do right now. And remember, looking at our exit script here, I said we are just going to handle for now locking room 2. This room 2 is locked. Again, if this is confusing, you can just change it to just have one is locked variable. But for now, we're just going to handle the room 2 is locked. So in our room, what I'm going to do is say exit dot room 2 is locked, and we're just going to set this equal to is locked. So whether the second room is locked is just going to be dependent on whether the is locked parameter we're passing in is true or false. And so now all of a sudden we've got this underlying connect exit function that can handle locking or unlocking rooms, etc. It can do whatever we need, but we've got really easy to use and well named. You know, anyone who saw a function called connect exit unlocked would instantly know, oh, it's creating an exit that's unlocked. And so we've made our developer experience better, because developers don't have to worry about all these different parameters here. And by developer, I mean future you, when you come back to your project and you've forgotten how your code is set up. If you haven't experienced that, you will. But anyway, so we've made this a really nice interface and we're good to go. We're actually locking exits now. So what we need to do here is actually change our house room to use connect exit unlocked, and then our outside room to connect exit locked, because remember, we are locking our shed. So now we have rooms and exits that are locked and unlocked. Now we need to actually implement using our key to unlock them. So we're going to have to add a new use command to our command processor. Before we get started on any of that though, first, we never actually implemented preventing the player from moving to a locked room. So if we go to our command processor and look at our go command here, we'll just see the way we're doing it now is we're saying, hey, if the current room has an exit, then we go into that exit. We actually need to check and make sure that the room is locked before we let the player go through, or make sure it's unlocked. Otherwise the player can't go through. And if it is locked, we'll print out a little error message. And so in order to do this, we're going to do something similar to this get other room function we created on our exit. And we're going to let the exit itself determine if we're trying to go into a locked room or not. So in our exit, we'll come over to the script. We'll add a new function called function is other room locked. And again, we will pass in the current room because that's really all we have access to right now. And then we're going to do something very similar to what we did in get other room. So we're going to say if current room equals room 1, what we're going to do is return. So we'll say return room 2 is locked. Because if we're currently in room 1, we only want to go through to room 2 if it is unlocked. And we're going to do the same thing for the other side of this equation. So elif current room equals room 2, we will return room 1 is locked. And if neither of these are the case, which again, it shouldn't happen, we're just going to we're going to print out an error and just say, actually, let me just copy this line from line 28 down on get other room. We're just going to return an error saying the room you tried to find is not connected to this exit. Again, it shouldn't happen. And we'll just return true and say if the player tries to go to an invalid exit, we'll just say it's locked to prevent them from going through. But again, we shouldn't get there. But just as a quick explanation, again, what's happening here is say we are outside, right, in our outside room and we try to go to our shed. Well, if our current room is the outside room, we want to see if the shed is locked, which it will be. But say we get to the shed from some other path through our world map. In that case, if we're currently in the shed, and room 1 is not locked, if the outside isn't locked, we want to just be able to move through. We don't need to unlock it. And I think it makes sense because if you are inside the shed, even if the door outside is locked, you can unlock it from the inside. So it should make sense. But again, feel free to simplify this in your own game. And what you might also want to do in your room is have a connect exit locked both ways, where remember here we were just doing is locked and we were just locking the second room. Again, you can make another function that locks both sides of the room. You can customize as needed, but we're just doing room 2 for now. So now we have our exit, and now we have this is other room locked function, which is going to actually return a bool. So let's add that return type here. And so this is good. Now we can actually call this from our command processor. So if I go over here, we can say, now remember, we're getting our exit here. So we can say if exit dot is other room locked. We're not getting autocomplete. So let me just come back here and copy this is other room locked. We need to pass in a current room. So we'll say is other room locked. And again, we're passing in current room. So if it is locked, then we are going to, instead of returning this response, we're going to do an error message and just return, you can't go there, that room is locked. So we can replace this and say that exit is currently locked. So this will tell the player, hey, that exit exists, but it's currently locked and you can't go there. So if the room's locked, we return this error message. Otherwise, we actually let the player go through. So we are not letting the player go through if the exit is locked. Okay, so now that we've got locked exits that will prevent you from going through, let's actually give it a try. So if I run our game, we should be able to go east, not locked. Now we're outside. Now if I try to go north, we'll see an error message. You can't go north, the exit is currently locked. And if I go west, we can now go into the house. So things are working as we would expect. We are not able to go through locked exits. Now we just need to make sure that we can actually use our items to unlock an exit. Okay, so we are almost there. And before we actually add our use command to our command processor, we've got to run into item and actually provide a way for our item to tell what using it does. And the way we're going to do this for now is very simple and probably not the best way, but just because all we have are keys, there's only one type of item right now, it's going to be totally fine. And as we add more item types later, or you do in your own game, you can find a better way to do this. But for now, we're just going to say variable use value. And this is going to be null. We're not going to type it. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to keep it as a generic use value that an item can set to be literally whatever it wants. Now for keys, this use value, we're going to set it within our room manager to actually be the room it's going to unlock. And we're going to do like our checking to make sure of what type of item it is within our command processor. So this is going to make sense in just a second, but for now we need to come into our room manager. And here we are going to say for our key, we're going to see key.useValue, and this is going to be shed room, because our key, when you use it, is going to unlock our shed room. And we know it's going to unlock something because its type is a key. And like I said, we're going to add this functionality, this checking, into our command processor for now. Ideally, like we've done with exits, we want to move that out of our processor and into our item as much as we can. But again, sometimes the best way to do things is find a way that works and then make it better later on when you have a better idea of how you're going to actually need to use it. We just don't have a great idea of how items are going to play out right now since we only have one type. So we'll just do the simple thing. So with that said, let's add our use command. And what I'm going to do, actually just after inventory, I'll say function use. And again, same as all of our other commands, it's going to return a string. And the way we're going to do this is it's going to be pretty similar to drop. So first, we need to check and make sure it has a second word because you have to use an item. And then we are going to loop through all the items in our player's inventory. So I'll copy all these. And so we're going to loop through the items in the player's inventory. And then if we find the item that's going to be used, then we're going to do something with it. Else, if we get to the end and we don't find it, we're going to return this. So we'll say, you don't have that item, you can't use it, etc. Oh, and I totally forgot, we need to pass in our second word here as a parameter. Okay, so now we're good. Now we have a use command. It doesn't do anything, but we can actually start adding that functionality. And so in order to do that, there's two things we want to do. The first is actually get what type of item it is. So we know that if we get within this if statement, we found the item and the player has it. And so if we have found it, we're going to match, and we'll say match on item.item type, which we know is a property on our item. Since we go back to item, we see item type. So we're going to match on item type, and we're going to say if types.item types.key. So if it's a key, we're going to do something. If it's an invalid type, which is any other type, we're going to, well, for now we can just return error. Try to use an item with an invalid type. Okay, so we can, hopefully, we should never get to this error case, but we'll just have it there just in case because we need to return something. Now, if it is an item type of key, we need to actually unlock a door. Now, this is extra complicated because we need to make sure that the exit or the room for which this key unlocks is actually connected to the room we're currently in. So the way we're going to do that is take a cue from our go command where we're looping through all of our current exit or all the exits of the current room. Here we're getting all the keys, but remember it's a dictionary and our actual exit resources, our exit values are the values of that dictionary, not the keys. So we're going to grab this, and instead of doing keys though, we're going to change this to be values, which is another Godot function that will let you get the values of a dictionary. So we're going to change this to be values. So now we're going to be getting all the values, but we don't want an if here. We need to say for exits in current room.exits.values. So we're going to go through all the exits, and we're going to say if exit. And remember, this is one of the reasons why we were specifically focusing on room 2 of the exit, not room 1. So we can say if exit.room2 equals item.useValue. So, okay, before we go further on this, let's explain what we're doing here. So if exit.room2, again, remember when we lock something in our room manager, when we connect exit locked, it's locking room 2, which is shed room. So it's going to set shed room as room 2 and be locked. And then in our command processor, item.useValue, remember for key items, our use value is the room itself. So we're setting the use value to be the shed room, and we're also locking the shed room in our exit. So what we're going to do here is say if exit.room2, which is the shed room, equals item.useValue, which will also be the shed room if we are in the outside room. If we're in the correct room where we can unlock this, then we're actually going to unlock it. Otherwise, we're just going to keep moving through. So if this is the case, then we're going to unlock something. If this is not the case, we're just going to get to the end of our for loop, and we're going to return that item does not unlock any doors in this room. And so what this is going to say is tell the player, hey, you tried to use a key to unlock something, but this is not the right room to unlock it in. So it's going to give the player a helpful message, but it's not going to unlock anything. Now, this is kind of complicated. There are better ways to do this, which again, experimentation on your own will help. One way to make this better is if we actually started implementing third words into our command processor. So that way we could say use key north, for example. Then we wouldn't have to do this lookup here. We could just check the specific exit that the player enters. It would make things a lot better and give the player a bit more agency because they would be trying specific doors. I think it's a better player experience to do that. And I'm hopeful that we'll get to the third words in our command processor before too long. But for now, again, we're just going to do something and try and get something that works. So that's why we've got this complicated loop here. So if exit.room2 equals item.useValue, we've actually got to do two things. We need to, one, delete our key if it gets used, and two, unlock that exit. Now, we don't have any functions right now to unlock exits on our exit script. So we need to add that first. So what we can do, actually, I mean, we could use a function. For now, like what we can do is just say exit.room2 is locked, and we can set this to be false. Again, we're assuming that room 2 is locked here. There's a chance it might be, but again, we'll assume that we don't have to do that check now. And so what we also need to do now is to remove that item from our player inventory. In order to do that, we can use the function we used for our drop command, which is player.dropItem, which will remove it from the player's inventory. And you might be asking, okay, and don't we need to also delete that item so it doesn't take up any memory? Well, remember, this is a really cool thing about using a resource for our item, is that resources are reference counted by Godot. So when there's nothing left in our game that references them anymore, they'll get deleted or garbage collected automatically. So we don't need to manually delete them. And once it's out of our player's inventory, then it's not being referenced in that array. And so it's not going to be referenced anywhere else in our game. So once we drop it, the only place it'll be referenced is as item within this function. And once this function's over, all of a sudden it's got no references anymore. And so it's going to get automatically deleted, so we don't need to manually delete it. We just need to remove it from our player inventory, and Godot will handle the rest under the hood. So here we are. We have a really complex, super nested function. I hate doing stuff like this, but sometimes, again, this is just how we're doing it for now, trying to get something that works. So we have a use command that we're going to go through all the items in our inventory until we find the item that was specified. And then we are going to, if it's a key, we are going to look for the exit that matches that key's value. And if it's there, we are going to unlock the room. So there we go. We've got all this. Now, the only other thing we can do here, and that we should do actually, is return a string telling the player they unlocked the door. So we can say return you use, and then we could try and make this fancy by saying you use the %s, and then this is going to be the name of the item to unlock a door to the, and then what we're going to do is just, or here we can just say to, and then I'll do another %s. Again, we will, we can make this better later on, but we're just going to concatenate in some strings here. So the first one, you use blank, is going to be the item name. So we'll say item.item name. And then the second one, the unlock a door to whatever, is going to be the room. So, or the other room. So we'll say exit.room2.room name. And we'll just make sure it's item name and room name. So in item, it's item name. And then in room, it is, scroll up to the top, room name. Okay, so we're using the right variables here. And now we should see, if we play our game, we should be able to test it and make sure it all works. We test and make sure it all works right after we actually add it to our command processor. I totally forgot we haven't done that. So we scroll up to our command processor. We're going to need to add our use key here, our use command. So same as we've done before with everything else. Whoops, forget that. And then we're just going to say return use, second word, just like all our other commands. Okay, now that we've got that, we're actually ready to run it and see. All right, so we are in a house. If I go east, we'll see that we are now outside. If I try going north, just again to make sure and test, our exit is currently locked. Let's test all of our error messages here. So what I'm going to do is say take key. We'll pick up the key. I'll go back west and try and use the key just to make sure we've got a good error message here. So if I try to use the key within our house, it says that doesn't unlock any doors here, which is perfect. That's what we want. Now, if I go back east, I believe, if I try and say use key now, it should say you use key. Okay, it should be a key, but whatever. You use key to unlock a door to a shed. So it's not the most grammatically amazing error message, but it works. It tells the player they've done something. So that means the shed should be unlocked. So now if I try and say go north, we're in a shed. And if I go back south, I can go north again. The door should remain unlocked. Perfect. Wow. So it was quite a lot of work. And, there's some stuff we're probably going to have to change as we expand our game. But we have doors that are locked and we can tie keys, we can tie items to those doors to unlock them. So now we have a system where we can lock doors in our game, and we've got a really awesome room and item system we can move and expand on going forward. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. This was a lot, but I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. If you did, a like and subscribe to support the channel is always appreciated. Joining our Discord server is a great way to get involved with the community and ask any questions you may have. And if you do find my work helpful, supporting my channel on Buy Me a Coffee is much appreciated and helps me continue to make great videos. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.